When a Jew walks into an Arab village, he runs the chance of being murdered. When an Arab walks into a Jewish town, he's typically just arriving for work. We have a very eye-opening segment for you today, right here on the Joshua and Caleb Report. Don't go away.
In a world plagued with anti-Israel propaganda, Hayovel presents the Joshua and Caleb Report, a positive voice of truth, straight from Israel's heartland.
In a world of negativity and fake news, every Christian should be connected to the life and positivity that Israel brings to the world. Guys, welcome back to the report here. We've got lots of good things to share with you. Don't forget, go sign up, subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave us a comment.
And for
5
all of you
stars.
conservatives out there that are looking for us on Rumble,
We're on Rumble.
If you're having a hard time finding us, we'll put a link in the description below so you can go subscribe on there as well.
We're also on all the podcasting platforms, so feel free to do that. But we like Rumble. We Rumble. I use that word all the time. I still have not been on Rumble.
I was just going to ask.
I'm going to do that.
But you like it.
I like it. I just love it because everything I hear about it, everybody's saying it's just the conservative place to go. So do that. Go ahead and jump on there. Guys, we're going to talk about something today. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the land of Israel that's greening. We have some positive things to talk about. But we're also going to talk about something that's really, it's sad. It's sad. Luke, you just introduced something that's really sad. Mm-hmm. A person's going to go, a Jewish person goes and runs, and his life is threatened.
Which happened
just yesterday. Literally, I saw all the, security vehicles running and just, hundreds of security and things like that. And then, on the other hand, I've just in the community, and we have Arab workers here that are working on buildings all over.
A couple hundred yards from right here. Yeah.
So, guys, before we dive into it and digest it ourselves here and talk about what happened yesterday, I've just got a local guy here, went out, did a little field report, and so we're going to show you that quickly, and then we'll dive back in to get some more on this topic. All right, guys, we're here with Eitan. Eitan, it's good to have you on the show today, but Eitan's one of the farm managers here in Samaria. I want to ask you about something that happened yesterday afternoon, just actually right behind us here through this valley. A runner from the area ran through this valley, and I guess he didn't know the area too well. And he ran, just kept running straight down the valley, and there's an Arab village at the end of the valley. And he ran around. It was a beautiful view, great sights there, and I guess he wanted to see some of the great sights. And he forgot one big thing, that there's Arabs in the village that don't like Jewish people.
Yeah.
So this happened yesterday. Arabs came out. They beat up the 25-year-old young man that was running. I want to ask you the question, just because that's what happened. What would happen, and this is what I want to highlight, because obviously Jews shouldn't run into Arab villages. It's a problem because they'll get beat up just like the guy was. Thank God he's alive. Like that was, that's a big... Now what happens? You live in the Shamron here. What happens if an Arab was to do the same thing and was to run into your village? What would happen?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just nothing.
Just nothing. So what would the story be? Okay, so he runs, and he passes your house. What do you do?
Nothing. What can I do? If he is not a terrorist or something like that. So it's like a normally person that want to run.
Just running.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing I think about it, is that there's a big problem here and people don't know, and the people out there, you guys are listening, there's a big difference here.
Yeah.
This young man that ran there, do you think the Arabs that were there, they didn't know he was coming? It was just 4 Arabs there. 5 Arabs there. Wow. All the Arabs in that village, like what are they thinking? Like,
I think that somebody saw him and then call his friends, and then they hit him. So
that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So if a Jew runs into an Arab village, they can expect it.
You can. Yeah.
So is that what you think? If a Jew runs into any Arab village, that's basically what happens?
Look, they live with hate.
Yeah.
They hear hate in the radio, in the TV, and they live with it. So if it's all the times like that, so I can understand that they're acting like that. But in the other side, it's very bad, because we are people. We are same people in the same land. Okay, so what we expect is not to have kind of the things like happened yesterday. But you see, it's like that. One time they beat people, one time they shoot people, one time they attack people with knife.
What do you do? What's the answer? How do you fix what can you do? How can you live safely and be able to run around your village and not feel afraid?
I saw when the right side on the political are in the frame.
Yeah.
So everybody of the Arabs get low. When the left side comes, so it's like that. We saw many months ago that it was quite, sometimes we hear terrorist attacks, but it's not like it's not the same in those times that the left side of the political are in the top. So it's very sad, but it's like that. So the Arabs know, I think they love, many years ago, one of the Arabs from Lebanon told me that how the Arabs get quiet. It's like if you hold them lower, they are quiet. If you press it, it's okay. If you get off, so you have problem.
So the answer is strong Jewish leadership. You need strong leaders, and we've got
just here.
Yeah,
not just here.
Around the world.
Yeah.
Strong support. So America.
Yeah, America also.
That's also a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have better days ahead, and thank God that the young man is okay.
Yeah, thank God.
So in addition to a jogger, Josh, I was jogging this morning. I think I saw you jogging the other day. It's something a lot of people like to do, and really, no matter where you are in the world, you should have the freedom to be able to jog and hike and picnic and walk and ride your bike without fear of being attacked. And,
which now that I'm 30, Luke, I tend to.
Hey, we forgot.
That. Yeah, I know.
Josh
I had to bring
30th.
it up.
Hey.
I had to
drop a
30,
comment below and let Josh know happy birthday. He just turned 30. So
and if you get an opportunity, encourage me to go jog. I mean, really, biking, jogging,
because 30
eating less.
is the prime of life. So.
Right.
Anyways, to get back on the topic, one of the amazing things about the attack that happened yesterday is that this Israeli Jewish man escaped with just a beating. And a month ago, there was another lady, Esther Horgan, in the northern Samaria region that went out jogging and was murdered.
Right.
Just today, as the recording of this show on January 26th, there was another terrorist attack happened in Samaria, and a terrorist with a knife approached a female IDF soldier, tried to stab her, and was neutralized and killed. Thankfully, thank God, and no one was injured.
Can we just tell everybody that it's a bad idea to approach a female IDF soldier? People think that they're small and like they don't think that. No, don't do that. Like really, they have guns and they shoot. Like really, this terrorist is dead. Thank God this terrorist was taken out and didn't harm anyone.
And two, this show, we always try to focus on the positive, and we're going to get into some very positive things. We don't like to focus on the negative things so much. And then obviously, you might be thinking, wow, terrorist attack yesterday, terrorist attack today, terrorist attack a month ago. We're not ignoring it either, because it does happen, and we can't minimize that. But we do also want to say that every attack that happens in Israel, specifically Judea and Samaria, is sent out on international news. It is probably less than you think. But I think, and what we want to bring this down to, this is probably our opinion, but I think it's pretty true. We had a new leadership in the United States government, and the United States is Israel's greatest friend and ally. And new leadership came into the White House, and I think the Arabs are feeling a new confidence to actually attack the Jewish people here in Israel.
Well, Luke, I thought that already, and I thought things heating up and why and all this stuff. But Eitan, the interview that we just did with Eitan, our friend here, he put it into exactly those same words, that they got emboldened by a left. He called it the left. It's the the anti, everything.
Right.
What are we looking at? We're looking at a Biden administration that's anti the land of Israel, anti the growth of the Jewish communities, anti building. And so when the Arabs around here see that, they're emboldened. They're emboldened in their plot. And what is their plot? Their plot is to push the Jewish nation into the sea and to see no more no Jews flourishing in this area. So that's a problem for us. And I think that's exactly what Eitan just said, and that's what we're saying. He also is engaged on lots of accounts where he's looking at spying on Arab chats and channels. So he's also getting this rhetoric from more than that. He's getting it from an inside connection.
Yeah. He actually sees it personally. He knows that they're being fed it. He mentioned TV, radio, even schools. We've both heard Palestinians from their own mouths talk about how their children are being fed violence, about how to kill Jews. Just the other day, there was an article that came out about a terrorist that murdered an Israeli mother 5 years ago in the south of Israel, I believe. And just in the last, just recently, his salary was upped a very significant amount for killing this Jewish mother. And he's in Israel's prison system today, and he's being given a salary by the Palestinian Authority, which in times past, unfortunately, came from American taxpayer dollars, and very well could in the near future again, considering the government that we now have in place in the United States. So I think personally it's a place for Christian Zionists to stand up and stand even stronger and to send that message of strength and support to Israel, because ultimately Israel's government and leadership has to stand strong and not just rely on the United States to account for their actions. How much they deal with the Palestinians, how much they push back on terrorists, whether they're going to destroy these terrorists' home that attacked this man yesterday, whether they're, put them in jail, whatever happens. Israel needs to have that strength, but also countries that support Israel, specifically the United States, have to support Israel. And if it doesn't come from our government, then Israel needs to feel the support of pro-Israel Christians all over the world. So
and I want to clarify too, Luke, the military's doing a fantastic job here. This runner literally ran almost right next to into the air village. It wasn't like he was just running in a close by area. So it is like I was talking to an Israeli just a few days ago, and a lot of people think coming into this area it's so dangerous, whatever. Yeah. And I was telling them, I've actually been there for 16. I've never even got a rock thrown at my car. Thank God. We've been protected. But there is these situations, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And if a Jewish person does go beyond those big red signs that say "Do not enter," Israelis shouldn't enter, then there's going to be problems. You're going to be beat up at a light case.
Maybe I'll just talk about this now. Rashida Tlaib called Israel racist state for not helping to vaccinate the Palestinians, which is just a complete lie. But she talked about Israel being an apartheid and a racist state. So take that back to what you just said. An Israeli can't go past a red sign into Area A because they then run the chance of being beaten or even murdered. And our Democratic U.S. Congresswoman is calling Israel a racist and apartheid state, when it's actually the complete opposite. Because this morning, at 6:30 in the morning, wherever it was, however early they start, Palestinians lined up at the gate of the community of the Mount of Blessing to arrive for work. And right now they're doing construction work in the Jewish community. Yeah. So it's complete opposite of what you hear.
Yeah. Look, let's go ahead and get all the bad news taken care of. Now,
then we're going
to talk some really good stuff. We're going to talk about trees. We're going to talk about the land of Israel greening. But I got to tell you, there's a really terrible situation going out there that we've got to let you guys know. Don't buy it. Just don't buy it. It's not happening. It's not true. It's not even true what they're saying. They're saying that and this is like big time news. And actually, Luke, I got really bad news for you. You're from Virginia, You think a lot of Virginia, right?
I saw that.
So Tim Kaine,
unfortunately they've been kind of sliding even farther.
So this Tim Kaine is the senator from Virginia, and he's really has come out. He's kind of joined Rashida Tlaib with this idea, and he states the same thing. They both got tons of quotes. Twitter's all over the place saying, "Now why is Israel vaccinating only the Jews why are they not vaccinating the Palestinians?"
Well, why is the United States not vaccinating Mexico?
Mexicans, that's a real issue.
It's
the same question.
Especially if the Palestinians want to be their own state. The PA wants recognition in the UN.
So let's give them the facts. What are the facts?
They don't want Israel's help. That's
no. And the Oslo Accords is that they signed the agreement
to vaccinate their own population and take care of their own population because they're supposed to be their own entity. The Palestinian Authority is a government.
So why is Tim Kaine?
And what has Israel said? We're taking care of our own population first, then we'll see if we can help our neighbors. Which they're probably going to do, because that's what Israel is actually known for.
What even
is
gets better
helping
than
their
that,
neighbors.
Luke? The minister of health here, and he's in charge of it all. He actually replied back to him, and he said, "Well, we're planning. We're going to do our citizens, like you said, and then we're going to help neighbors."
Exactly,
And
because
so,
they help the Palestinians
Right.
with their electricity. They help them with
Right.
their water. They collect their taxes.
But the fact is that there's almost 2 million Arabs that are citizens of the land of Israel.
Right. You have and
That are being
they're being
vaccinated.
vaccinated. Exactly.
Right.
They're distinguishing between Jews and Arabs in Israel proper. But
Yeah.
then you have the Palestinians. So you have the Palestinians with the Palestinian Authority, which is their own government, their own municipality. But when it comes to actually existing as a people, the Palestinians would not exist without Israel's
Let me
help.
tell you something better. If they would stop the pay to slay and stop paying that guy you just talked about earlier a salary,
And upping
they could
salaries,
take
yeah.
care of those vaccinations
probably
real easy.
could, yeah.
No, they totally could. Like that's one of their biggest budgets is this pay to slay thing. That's got to stop.
Right.
The other thing is, Luke, is that it's actually totally falsehood. They've already vaccinated 75% of the terrorists that are held in Israeli prisons.
Right, because that's Israel's doing that. Israel
Israel is already vaccinated.
Yeah.
So if news for all these leftists in America that think Israel is some biased, hypocritical,
And here's what,
terrible
just in case
state.
you're wondering what the Palestinian Authority is spending their time on right now, this is one event that's happened amongst many events just this past week. The Palestinian Authority held a ceremony this past Sunday, during which participants planted some 2,000 trees on Israeli state land. Not only Israeli state land, IDF training ground. Here in Samaria, close to the Green Line. And it was a public event, photographers, Palestinian Authority officials. It was publicized by the Fatah-affiliated radio station all over social media. They weren't trying to hide it at all. Armed PA police officers were among those in attendance, and they were filmed as they entered into the IDF firing zone. And they have this big event taking over. And this is one instance of planting trees, but they're also building schools. They're building buildings. They're taking over Area C land, which is Israel state land, which they have absolutely no right to under the Oslo Accords.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
So if that's what the Palestinians are working on amongst their pay to slave program and paying their prime minister, president, whatever Mahmoud Abbas is paying his ridiculous salary of like $1 million a month, and he's been in office for like 16 years too long, like over his term or something like that.
Right.
So unfortunately, the Palestinian people could really use some help, but they're not getting their help from their own government. If it wasn't for Israel helping to take care of them, they wouldn't even exist.
So just take another special note that these leftists in the States, these democratic people that are bashing Israel,
right.
just help them. Go show them some facts. If anybody knows any of them, if you can get on platforms, go ahead and just...
In all seriousness, that like you could do that. That's what your congressmen and senators are for, is to represent you, their people.
Yeah.
So you can actually go to them and send them these facts.
Virginia, come on.
Hey, that's my home
Go
state.
at it,
So
go at it.
if you're
All right.
listening in Virginia, I moved, so I can't actually do that anymore. You know.
You know what the funny thing is?
But
is that,
we've both done that, Capitol
Right, we
Hill,
have.
and it's a legitimate thing. They want to
Right.
hear from you.
Yeah.
So that's now more than ever.
So the funny thing is these Arabs are going out and planting trees. I wonder if they knew it was Tu Bishvat.
Exactly.
Tu Bishvat. Guys,
Because
Tu
this is the
Bishvat
time to plant trees.
This is the good news we have for you. We're going to really talk about some good news. And
I think we get it
got
all out of a system. We're
Out.
good to go now.
Good.
Got
We're good
some
to go. We got
positive
some
news.
good stuff for you guys.
2 pieces, so hang on tight here.
Tu Bishvat. Tu
That's
Bishvat
right.
is the 15th of Shvat.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was the second of Shabbat, but because
No, it's not.
two.
This is
the 15th.
Hebrew. It's
Exactly.
Hebrew, guys. Get on the Hebrew grid here. We're going to be talking about Hebrew stuff. I did look it up, and for all you guys that are just totally don't know any Hebrew and haven't been to Israel yet, maybe you're thinking, what does Tu Bishvat
something.
have to do with planting trees? Well, I looked this up. Arbor Day. Okay, now everybody's on the same page. Like Arbor Day.
Wait. What if we don't know what Arbor Day is?
Arbor Day. Well, if you're an American, you can figure out what Arbor Day is. Arbor Day, Luke, was founded in
I've heard of
1872.
it. I think I've heard of it.
1872, Arbor Day was founded, and people go out
Is
and
it
they
for
plant
planting
trees.
trees?
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
You just go
Okay.
plant trees.
I don't
Now,
think I ever planted a tree.
and I think it's different for every state, and actually a lot of countries around the world have an Arbor Day. Now, let me tell you, the Arbor Day is absolutely nothing, and it's insignificant compared to Tu Bishvat,
Right.
because Tu Bishvat actually
it's
goes
a
back.
new year, right?
Yeah, it's a new year, but it actually doesn't just go back to 1872. It actually goes back about 3,000
Deuteronomy
plus years.
14:22.
Right, exactly.
Hey,
Yeah, hey,
no
good
pun
one.
intended.
Good.
Can I read the verse real
Yeah,
quick?
go ahead,
You
yeah.
shall tithe all the yield of your seed that comes from the field year by year.
So, how do you know what year by year is. There's a lot of stuff like this in the Bible that you may read and you go, okay, so now how do we, okay, it doesn't say when the year, this agricultural year, right? So if you've got crops coming in, when do you know that's going to be complete? So they said, okay, we're going to create this date, Tu Bishvat, and it's been celebrated in Israel for a long time.
So basically, it's because if you're a farmer, you have to have cycles, right?
Start date,
So how
end date.
you're going to figure out how to tithe the produce of your field. So you have to have a start date and an end date. Well, Tu Bishvat, the 15th of Shvat, which usually falls in January, maybe February, is the end of last year's agricultural cycle, right? And the beginning of next year's.
Right. So any fruit that was ripened before now would go in that year's cycle. So that your tithing would be put into that year. Now, everything after tomorrow, guys, we're literally about to celebrate Tu Bishvat. We're going to be planting trees tomorrow. Look, we're going to plant.
That's right.
We've got 1,000
1,000 to
trees sitting out
plant.
here and no volunteers to boot. Like, what now? What are we going to do? Right? Like,
We're going to need some help.
If anybody can figure out how to get into this country and come help us plant some trees,
Just show up.
come on up. Come on up.
We're not going to tell you where we'll be.
Yeah,
but-
we're just going to be planting trees. Okay, so the staff here, we're going to be planting all hands on deck, planting trees tomorrow. So that's what Tu Bishvat is all about. It's about planting the trees. Now, even the grape harvest, it's counted from this date. So the harvest of last year was like that's the calendar date. This is finished.
Right.
So you're finishing with your harvest, and then you're going into a new. So we're going into a new season. It's like the spring kickoff here of a new agricultural season. So the trees that were planted yesterday would be a year old. Now this will really throw you for a loop. So the trees that were planted, this is literally how the cycle works. So you have a start date, end date. So everybody's going to be planting trees on this date, and everything's counted. Doesn't matter when you planted or when you took that fruit. This is a start. New date is forthcoming. So the trees that we're planting on Tu Bishvat, they're set for a happy new year where we're praying those roots sink deep and the land of Israel continue to be really transformed by the greening that's happening here in the land of Israel.
So
with the planting
they
of
will
trees.
say, if I can quote Ezekiel, that this land that was desolate has become like the Garden of Eden. Because, we're seeing after 2,000 years of desolation, Israel is waking up and blossoming and blooming once again. And coming out of that winter, which is like we're seeing, we're not quite coming out of winter, but the days have already passed the shortest day of the year and they're beginning to get a little bit longer.
Yep, spring's
We're
coming.
seeing spring, starting to peek around the corner. We're seeing greenery. We're seeing
Almond blossoms.
flowers. Did you see some
Almond blossoms are budding. That's a true
the most
sign.
beautiful thing I think you could ever see. So we're just at the beginning of that, and we see that with true with Israel as well. After 2,000 years of desolation, Israel was founded again in 1948, and they're beginning to blossom and bloom once again. And the land that was desolate has become like the Garden of Eden.
Which it would one
It's
more
in that
note.
process.
Yeah, it's amazing to see this process happening. And another amazing thing that the dates and the times that at the end is when it's all having to do with tithe. So you're tithing your produce and all these things. So when you finish that year, isn't that a great thing? You're calculating it all up, and that's when you give. That's when you give. You figure out what all you should give of that year, and then you're looking. Now you're reset and starting of a new year. So Tu Bishvat is an amazing thing. You guys should look it up. We've got
Doing a Seder,
yeah, we're doing it. It's
I would
actually a
try
Seder.
to advertise it, but it's happening tomorrow night. So if you haven't already got on board, if you really, really want to get on board, send us a message, at our email address or something like that. We'll try to squeeze you in. But,
And if you can't do that, just go plant a tree. It's really easy.
Yeah.
Just go plant a tree in honor of
and
Tu
drink some
Bishvat.
wine
And
because
drink some
you're
wine.
supposed to drink wine, right? So, and that's some of the best parts too.
And
So you can celebrate that.
Make
way.
it-
Plant
go
a
ahead.
tree and have a glass of wine. If you can't actually join our virtual Seder that we'll be doing on Wednesday night this week, you can plant a tree and have a glass of wine.
one more thing we got to talk about, Luke, and that's the desert and the vineyards that are being planted in the desert. It's an amazing thing that's happening. The wineries in France and where else? France, Italy have declined in their wine production by 15%, and also in Spain. So, and actually in
If you
Spain,
know about
it went down
the-
24%.
Right. And if you know anything about the wine world, that's
Now, you're a
like
sommelier.
the
Let's go
three
ahead.
big countries.
Guys, Luke
Right.
Luke is a sommelier. Listen when he's talking about this.
Well,
This
when
is
I
good.
was studying for my wine class, right, like Italy and France and Spain, those are like probably the three top countries for wine. And in 2019, wine outputs in Italy and France declined by 15%, in Spain by 24%.
That's a lot.
Now, what they're putting that down to is, and whether or not we believe in global warming.
No, it was hotter last year than the
We're
year
not
before.
saying.
That doesn't mean anything happened in global
Okay.
warming. It was just hotter.
I'm not going to say either way whether or not I believe in global warming. Okay, I'm just
Okay,
going
you
to
don't
say
have
it
to,
was
okay.
those plunges were put down to the unusually hot weather that they had that summer and other climactic shifts, according to the International Organization of Vine and Wine. But here in Israel, if you go down to the Negev, we're not even talking about our wine region.
You know, I
If you
planted
go down-
vines in the Negev before.
Oh, that's right.
Were
I
you
remember
with
that.
me?
I was at
I
a
remember. I had a whole
neighboring
team
farm,
down there.
but I was there that
Yeah, the
day,
whole team. Yeah.
The Negev, like hot weather is it's pretty normal to have like 110 degree weather if you're
Right.
an American. We're talking about Fahrenheit here. So that's normal for them. And well, guess what? They have over 24 wineries in the Negev desert, along with a thriving wine tourism business. And how have they figured it out? Because obviously it's at least as hot as these places in France and Italy and Spain. But they have figured out ancient practices that were taken from the Nabateans,
Yeah. Which
2,500
Nabatean pottery
years ago.
You go down there, Nabatean pottery's everywhere. Like it's just
Right.
like so they've
Okay.
taken these
Yeah, that's
practices
amazing.
from the Nabateans. Been down there,
Right.
get tons.
So
like,
they're using techniques from 2,500 years ago
Yeah.
to develop modern, new desert taming techniques.
Right.
Stuff like trellising systems to force the vines to grow in a certain pattern so that the leaves create shade over the clusters. They experiment with just different nets and covers. And obviously the biggest thing that Israel is well known for is the drip irrigation systems, which big wine regions of the world were actually very resistant to at first, but they slowly began integrating with them and testing them over the past time period. And so you have thriving wineries and vineyards in blistering hot regions, while well-known, wine regions of the world are still trying to figure out what do we do. They got to shift and change because techniques that they've used for 100 years, 200 years are not working anymore. So you have the Negev Desert, smallest. Israel is not even considered a wine region. When I went through all my classes, Israel was not listed in any of the materials.
No.
None of the books, the curriculum, Israel was not listed there.
which is fascinating.
When I took the classes here, even though the classes come out of the UK, and so we tasted some of the wines here, but most of them were even from Europe, so it's not even on the list. But guess what? One day Israel will be on the list for old world wine regions because they were an old world wine region from 2,500 years ago. So you have winemakers and vineyard owners from France, Italy, other parts of Europe that are coming to the Negev to learn about how to grow grapes, how to grow cherry tomatoes, pumpkins, date palms, and all kind of other crops.
Right, because it's not just winery. The wines, they have incredible growth. And this
They're
is what
watering tomatoes with desalinated water from the Mediterranean Ocean.
Right, which gives the tomato a special little taste and a
because
special
it got that
gets
salt.
in there. Luke, this is what I read. When I thought about when I saw this and I saw this was happening, and people from around the world were coming to Israel to learn how to grow their grapes and grow tomatoes and you name it, pumpkins, date palms, all kind of stuff. They're just like, what do you think? Pumpkins coming from out of the desert? Like that doesn't even make sense. Like but it's happening. And this is what came to mind in Isaiah 35:1. We'll end with this. It says the wilderness and the dry land. Okay, that's desert right there. Shall be glad, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as a rose. Everybody's
Amen.
heard that before,
Amen.
but literally, right now, it's happening down in the deserts of Judea, down in the south of Judea, all the way down, like you go all the way to the Red Sea. Like literally, there's farms. I just drove it the other day.
That's right.
Literally, greenhouses, farms, plants. I mean, just seriously, it's growing and it's literally popping forth. The land of Israel is sprouting again. So, Tu Bishvat, the land of Israel, even all the way down to the desert, it's coming alive.
Josh, we're completely out of time. As always, we managed to end with some amazing positivity coming straight from the biblical heartland of Israel. As always, leave us comments. We'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, be strong, be courageous, and be the voice of Joshua and Caleb in your generation.
I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I believe in the words of the covenant spoken.